So we've talked about the role profile and then creating job adverts and then sifting criteria. What comes after that?
Yeah, I love this question because it's really clear in my mind now that the role advert should have key responsibilities, and that's what we use to sift, right? Have you got experience of? And if you have, then I know that if we do an interview together, we can talk about stuff. I can ask questions and you will be able to talk about how you've done or how you interpret all of these elements of the role. So if the sifting criteria is experience of, then the next bit, the interview is about ability to and about the level. So I would say in a standard role advert, you maybe see key responsibilities, and then you might see something like a candidate specification or key skills. This is where you tell the client the kind of organization you are and the level that you expect somebody to be. One of my friends works in coding, and when he hires a coder, he has to put the level that they need to be. He's not hiring them to be at his level, he's hiring them to work to a level of complexity. So that's the kind of thing that I think you have in there. Then you use your interview to test those things. And without talking too much about the interview, because we covered that last year, the interview is, can you tell me a time when? Tell me about your experience of. Show me how you would take on that task. And as the interviewer, you're looking for, do they do this in the way that we know is successful for us here? And the positive and negative indicators that you write in advance that become your marking scheme, that's where you get that stuff down in advance.
Great. So tell me a bit more about those positive and negative indicators. What do we mean by that and how does that work?
Yeah, so I think this is a really important stage because we will have all been in an interview where you and the other person can't agree whether somebody was good or not, right? You're saying, I think they show great leadership potential. The other person going, I don't think they were a leader at all. And it might be because we picture leadership differently or whatever the skill is. So it's really important in advance to agree what good looks like for the role. And to do that, the clear company recommendation is that you write some positive indicators. This is the level that we'd expect them to be at. And these are the kind of things that we want to hear. For example, they take individual responsibility. They give regular updates, that kind of detailed thing. If we hear that, then in the interview, we know that it's going to be towards the higher score. But we also need to write the negative indicators. And I often say the negative indicator shouldn't be something ridiculous. It shouldn't be came in and swore at me, right? It should be something plausible that somebody might do. So it might be that somebody says, well, I'm very much somebody that works entirely independently. And maybe that works in some contexts. But if your positive indicator is collaborates, provides regular updates, and your negative indicator is works in silos, doesn't give regular updates, it's that thing of mapping it out. And I'm giving a generic example here, but again, the hiring manager will know, I really find it valuable when people do this, and I find it challenging when people do that. That doesn't work for our team, this does. And then you can score, did they meet the criteria? Did they meet most of the criteria? Did they meet half of it, less than half, almost none of it? And you've got that scoring grid. And one key point here is you need to agree in advance what your scoring criteria is. So if some people will say, well, I'm a harsh marker. Clear Company suggests you try and remove that differential by agreeing in advance what an A looks like. So for the Clear Company, an A is meets the criteria. B is more than half, C is half, D is less than half, and E would be none. Some people will say, well, your A to me sounds like a B. And, we can respond to that challenge. For us, that's a way of reducing bias because actually what goes above and beyond, we think if you give a great answer, that should be an A. If you can fulfill the criteria, it's an A. But yeah, it's ultimately about that piece. Do I know in advance what I'm looking for? So we're not going to have a potentially bias-ridden discussion about that candidate. We're going to sit there and calmly score them based on our pre-agreed criteria and the answers they gave.